Wait a minute, I hear something.
Dr. Movie! Dr. Movie! Blueberry News! Dr. Movie! Dr. Movie! Yeah!
Hello, everybody, and welcome back again to another episode of Dr. Movie, the podcast that has one sole purpose. And we're still trying to figure out what that is. As you can tell, driving down the road, going to work, and thought I would add another one to our body swapping movie list. Obviously, again, from the 80s, because that's kind of my thing, folks. I'm an 80s kid. That's how I kind of remember all these. But this one, we're going to go back a little bit to 1984. And what a magical year 1984 is. For me, anyways. I think for most people. When you look at the list of movies that came out in 84 and 85, it's pretty incredible. But we're going to talk about a little different movie. Even though it's still kind of body swapping, there's a lot of body swapping going on in this one. All of Me from 1984, comedy romance. Right off the bat, I gotta say, I mean, come on, it's Steve Martin and Lily Tomlin. I mean, you know, comedy classics here, right? So, fun little flick. Let's look at our synopsis here. While on her deathbed, the rich Edwina Cutwater has her lawyer, Roger Cobb, add the odd stipulation that will take her soul out of to be inheritedly into the young Terry Hoskins. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to get too much more in it because it's one of those synopsises that's way too long. Synopsises? Is that a word? I don't think so. Synopsi. How about that? It's one of those synopsi that goes on a little too long. Yeah, I mean, that's it in a nutshell. In other words, we're going to take the soul out of one woman that's dying and put it into a young, attractive lady. And they're both okay with it. That's kind of the setup here. Let's talk about this cast. I mean, like I already said, Steve Martin, Lily Tomlin. I mean, do you really need any other explanation? I mean, about as big as you can get from the early to mid 80s as far as star power. Obviously, Lily Tomlin from The Incredible Shrinking Woman is the first thing I think of. Steve Martin, I mean, take your pick, right? Well, you can really say that with Lily Tomlin too. I mean, she had a lot of great flicks. We have Victoria Tennant in this, who's the young lady that they're wanting to move Lily Tomlin's body or spirit into. And Victoria kind of wants her soul to just kind of go wherever. And she's popped up in a few things. L.A. Story, which is another Steve Martin movie. So kind of got that. Flowers in the Attic. I remember her being in that. So you know, if you're looking for trying to place who she is, we got Madeline Smith Osborne in this. Very distinct figures. You kind of recognize her right off the features, not figures. She was in Urban Cowboy. Yeah. That's kind of what I think of when I think of her. We got Richard Libertini in this, which to me kind of makes the movie. I mean, he's this kind of swami guy. Spiritual, you know, person that's going to move the bodies between each other using a bowl, right? It's kind of the whole gist of the thing. We've got Selma Diamond in this from Night Court. So again, there's a long list of people here that you're going to go, hey, I recognize that person. I recognize that person, but I can't do that while driving. So let's talk about this one. Yeah, Steve Martin's working for a lawyer, and he's wanting to eventually develop into a partnership. But, you know, the place that he's at, he's also a part-time musician, jazz guy. And, does that on the side, but that's really his passion. But he does the lawyer thing because that's where he spent all his money, went to school, all that stuff. He's dating Peggy, who is Madeline Smith Osborne. And, you can tell they've got a pretty interesting situation. And you don't find this out till later on, but the guy that Steve Martin is working for in the lawyer situation, that's her dad. So, kind of a dangerous thing there if you think about it. Seems legit, all right, for a bit, but things get a little crazy because his boss is always fooling around with somebody, right? He's got this one lady that comes in, and when the movie kind of starts off, he's in the office with this girl, and they're all over each other, or this lady, I guess I'd say. And she's like, after 36 years of marriage, you still haven't lost your passion. Well, this is not who he's married to. I guess they've been fooling around that long. So, lo and behold, he messes around a lot. Let's just put it that way. And then Steve Martin's like, look, I want to get a partnership. I'm tired of just being this secondhand fiddle kind of guy. And he said, hey, if you go up and take care of this one today, then we'll look at trying to get you into a partnership. And it's Lily Tomlin's character, who is Edwina, and she's on her deathbed, and she's been wanting to die pretty much her whole life. Interesting, right? Because the doctors are like checking her. She's like, yep, you could die any minute. And she's like, awesome. I mean, you can see she's got this big smile on her face. But what it is, she gives Steve Martin, who shows up, and she explains what's going to happen. We're going to take my spirit, and when I'm leaving, this Swami guy is going to capture my spirit in this bowl, and it's going to be passed on to this young lady, Terry. And Terry's spirit's going to be set free, and she's going to go out and beyond, right? So that's your setup for the whole story. And, of course, Steve Martin's thinking, y'all are out of your minds. And he gets in an argument with Lily Tomlin, which is great. Those two battering back and forth is just fantastic. But he leaves, and she's way up high. No, I'm sorry, that's a little later on. But the next day, maybe the next day, could be the same day. But Lily Tomlin and all of her bunch is now in the insurance office, the lawyer office, and giving them the spiel. She's doing all the paperwork, signing over everything. Steve Martin's up there, and he tries to apologize, but again, Lily Tomlin just says, stop groveling, and, just be on your way. He's like, look, I'm not groveling. So again, they just keep digging at each other. Steve Martin gets mad and leaves. And while he's walking out, like I said, there's several stories up. And then Lily Tomlin dies up there in the office, and they catch her spirit in the bowl, and they set it too close to the window, and it falls out the window by accident and hits Steve Martin in the head while he's walking underneath. So now he's got Lily Tomlin and himself in his body, and it's almost like she controls one half of his body, he controls the other half, and that's where this movie sits. And so they spend the rest of the time trying to figure out how to get her body out of him and back into Terry, and that's where all the fun ensues, right? You get where Steve Martin has to go to the bathroom, and he's having difficulties. I mean, it's simple things, just like even walking, because she's flamboyant, right? I mean, she's very, very uppity, super rich. I mean, come on, she can afford to put her spirit into another body. She's got some money, right? And that's kind of her spiel. She's been sick her whole life. She's never really got to enjoy going out or running and playing because she always had this heart problem. And she wants to be put into a healthy body where she can do whatever she wants to, right? And actually get a second chance at life. But, again, the whole thing of her being in his body. And come on, man, Steve Martin, pulls this off so well, going back and forth trying to pretend to be her and him. And you get the voiceover things like we got in 18 again. Very similar. I mean, they're kind of similar movies, except they're both in the same body at the same time. Well, it turns out that Terry wasn't ever intending on this to happen, right? Because she's in line to inherit the estate if she dies, because it's been signed over to her because she agreed to take over the body, but she never intended that. She wants to be herself. And turns out that Terry's got quite the background. She's not a stand-up person, right? So you find all this stuff out, and she actually takes this Swami guy. I don't know what else to call him. He's some kind of priest, right? Who doesn't speak English. They put him in a hotel room, which is absolutely hilarious because he accidentally flushes the commode and the phone rings at the same time. So he thinks every time the phone rings, the commode either needs flushing or, you know, there's this silly stuff like that, right? But the whole point is to get the Swami back to Steve Martin and, you know, get Terry around and do the swap, and they never can get it lined up. But you get the story of, you know, Edwina just not really being a good person herself to people, kind of rubbing people the wrong way. When they go to her funeral and nobody shows up, you know, because nobody cared for her, right? The only people that cared for her are the people that she bought stuff from, like the oxygen company and the wheelchair company. They're the only ones that had any kind of responses that were written in and sent in, so they didn't even show up. So that just kind of shows you that she was, you know, filthy rich and just kind of ran over everybody. And then you get the complications with Steve Martin's character, Roger, and his girlfriend, because now he's having to try to explain that there's a woman trapped inside of him, because she's standing outside of his office one day and hears him talking to himself, but changing his voice, and she comes in looking for another woman. Where is she? I want to know where that slut is, all that kind of stuff, and he has to try to tell her that it's inside of him, and he don't believe it, and all that kind of stuff. So it's a lot of fun, man, I tell you. And then at the same time, because this all kind of got blown out of proportion, going back to the whole partnership thing, his boss tells him, hey, I got one more job for you. If you get me through this, or if you get us through this, then all right, the partnership is guaranteed. Well, what it is his boss is getting a divorce from his wife because she's figured out he's been messing around with all these women, and he wants Steve Martin to defend him in court so he doesn't lose all of his money. So you get that problem. Now you got the girlfriend problem with the other woman that's now trapped in the body, and you're trying to defend your dad against your girlfriend's mother. So there's all these complications of this stuff going on, and it's just fun. It's fun, chaotic. It's Steve Martin. I don't know what else to tell you. I mean, if you haven't seen this movie, you need to see it. I mean, it's great. There's some shots in here I'm still trying to figure out how they pulled off. There's one scene where he stands in front of a mirror. Lily Tomlin's in the mirror. Every time he goes to the mirror, he sees her, right? He don't see himself. And he throws something and breaks the mirror, and she's still in the image. And I know it's all forced perspective, it's gotta be, but the fact that he throws something straight and it hits the mirror and she's in the reflection and still in it, I'm still trying to figure out just how you set that up, because the camera is behind Steve Martin's head. So it's pretty interesting. I know it's got to be a simple answer, but when I look at it, I'm like, you know what? That's pretty impressive for the time, right? So, I don't know. It's just one of those things that stood out to me. It's like, you know, that's not easy to do. The other stuff you can just do, hey, I'm on the other side of the wall, and it's like I'm a mirror reflection of you. That stuff's pretty standard. But breaking this mirror and her being still in it is interesting. So, but the great thing about this is you got the Terry character, like I said, who has no intentions of doing this body swapping thing. starts making the moves on Steve Martin, right, to get on his good side. Always trying to sleep with him and all this stuff. And it never happens because, again, he tries to do all this stuff when Edwina is asleep, and, you know, it just never works out. It's you got some great scenes here as well. And comes down to they take Edwina's body out and put her in the bowl, and they try to sneak up and get Terry to grab onto the bowl and change the bodies, but she actually kind of hits it with her elbow or something, and it flies in the air and it lands in a bucket over by it's to water a horse or to wash a horse, because there's a lot of horses on the estate. And so now they think Lily Tomlin's spirit is now in that water. And so now you got Steve Martin running around carrying this bucket, and you've got, you know, security guards and everybody chasing him, and he's running around with this bucket. He puts it in a pitcher, takes the pitcher and gives it to his buddy, who's a blind saxophone player who plays a big part in all this too, and tells him, hey, just hold on to this, I'll be back after a while. And what happens is the bowl gets damaged, and the bowl has to be in perfect condition for all this to work. So the Swami guy has to go back here in the shop and start hammering out his bowl and getting it back to the normal form for all this to work. And so we got much more running around. Steve Martin with a bucket of water with fake water, and it just now, you know, the other water's in the pitcher. And while he's running, he dumps out the water, and then all of a sudden here's Terry standing there, and she's got the pitcher of water, and she pours it on some flowers. And you're thinking, all right, that's it. So there's a party going on during all this, and that's how Steve Martin got back to the estate, because she'd blocked him from being there. And it ends up that Edwina is in the saxophone player because he drank some of it, not thinking that it was something he wasn't supposed to drink. He just thought it was something to drink. And so now we got to get the body out of the saxophone player, and again, just trying to get this situation worked out. I'll kind of leave it there, right? So lots of chaos, lots of fun, lots of physical humor with Steve Martin trying to, you know, separate his body. It's early Jim Carrey type stuff, if you catch my drift. Very, very physical. Steve Martin does great. I mean, this is a great movie. It's a lot of fun. So highly recommend it. Like I said, does it fit into this genre we're talking about, the body swap thing? Well, it does. It's just a little different because it's two bodies in one, or two souls in one body, versus what we just had in 18 again. Well, no, they switched. That's right. But you only got to follow the one story, right? So that's kind of my take on this one. I give this a 4 out of 5 as well. Again, Steve Martin, Lily Tomlin. I don't know what else you need to know. That's comedy gold. And it's a nifty little movie. So I think you ought to check it out. And that's it for this one, folks. We will check you later.
Dr. Movie!